Yes, the Met game was annoying last night, and the Yankee game was a nice cruising win.
The snooze fest.
Snooze fest, but still, Franchi bet the Ranchy. He was the big story last night. But the Mets offense is just annoying. It's just an annoying offense.
Yeah, even when they get a good swing like Lindor had in, what was it, the 8th inning, it
foul.
Just goes foul. And I don't know if they would have won the game anyway, but in that point, it would have put them ahead. And, the 9th inning was what. This was interesting, and I get the whole righty-lefty thing. I do. I really do. But Tomas Nido for Luis Guillorme?
Yeah, I mean, was there some sort of splits that I didn't know about or we didn't know about and go through it?
Yeah. I went and looked because that's, and I'm not second-guessing Buck or anything like that. It was more like, I really want Tomas Nido up. And, by the way, he did the job. He got the runners over, the comebacker. He got the runners over, so it's not like it didn't work out to a certain extent. I don't know, though. To me, let Guillorme hit. I went and looked. Guillorme's, all right, lifetime 225 against lefties. I get it. Fine. He's a tough lefty to hit against.
It doesn't make much sense.
Like nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense. What annoyed me really yesterday is you had two young guys who got beat by two better players in key spots. And one was David Peterson against Manny Machado.
Sure.
And that was the game right there. I mean, that was absolutely the game. 2 strikes, 2 outs. He's got him on the rope.
I didn't think it was a bad pitch either.
No, it wasn't. I mean, he fouled off that same pitch a couple of times, and then he just kept it fair on the RBI double. So, that was annoying, and you tip your cap to a great player, and then Josh Hader with Francisco Alvarez at the end of the game.
Should have walked him on 4 pitches, and he's chasing, which you understand.
Yeah.
And also, that 2-0 pitch that almost hits him, where he comes up and in 98 miles an hour, I think it was, and then he goes after something that's up in the zone or up above the zone twice, and he was overmatched. You're exactly right. It was almost like they showed after, I think it was the 3-2, maybe it was 2-2, I forget, and they show you Alonso at the railing of the dugout, and you're sitting there thinking, it's got to be going through in his mind, we got no chance.
Yeah, and this sort of reiterated the fact that the Mets didn't believe that he was ready for a situation like this, and he gets thrown into this because of the Navarez injury, and then all of a sudden they're playing him sporadically. They're playing him, once out of every 4 nights, basically, has been the trend so far. And now I'm thinking, I don't want them to now screw him up because he's not supposed to be up here. So, yesterday I'm screaming and yelling about playing time for him. He gets some playing time and he looks overmatched. And then I'm thinking maybe I should trust the organization with this. But then if you send him back down, then he comes up and he has now failed basically twice at the major league level and had to go back down. Now, that's an issue. So, maybe getting him acclimated. This is not as easy as I thought it was. I still would throw him in there and play him as much as possible, as long as his defense isn't annoying to the starting pitchers, because that is a big deal. But it's just, this is very, very delicate. And then on top of it, this, fans, baseball fans, especially around here that know the minor league system, like the nutso baseball fans. So as the Mets offense is struggling,
I know where you're going here.
What's going on in AAA?
Bang, bang, bang.
Right. So you got Beatty hitting a home run. Yeah. You got Vientos hitting a home run. You got Mauricio hitting a home run. And the Mets fans are seeing all this on Twitter. And in 2023, we'd find about that, that type of stuff, maybe in the newspaper the next day, or maybe the broadcast would mention it a week later. But now we know instantaneously what's going on with these guys as the Mets are struggling offensively, and they're going, what the hell's going on with this organization? Yeah. You got these kids down there, and they're hitting the hell out of the ball. You got Alvarez up here. He can't hit the ball. You got the major leaguers who can't hit the ball. And you got Vientos and Mauricio and Beatty, who should have been on this team to begin with. They're hitting the crap out of the ball, so this organization doesn't know what they're doing. Now, I don't think that's the right take on this, but the longer that the offense struggles and the more that you see that going on in AAA, those voices are going to get louder, and I think the Mets are going to have to do something about it.
Well, to your point about Alvarez, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you put him back in the minor leagues and he starts hitting home runs again and he's doing what you expect him to do, why isn't he here?
Yeah.
You bring him up here, he's not so good. Well, what do we do with him? Do you play him? Are you going to ruin him? It's not easy. You're right. What you said is right. It's not easy. These decisions are not easy to make, and you don't want to rush guys at the same time. Now, in fairness, the Mets do load the bases in the first inning with Pete Alonso up.
Yeah.
And they get nothing out of it. So it's not because Francisco Alvarez is not hitting. They've got guys on this team that should be good enough to get the job done in certain spots. You got, Alonso gave you nothing in that first inning. I know he got picked off on the base as well. Lindor comes up empty, almost hit the home run, didn't. They've got players right now. They've started the season average at best. Now, The bad news is they've started the season 6-6. The good news is they're 6-6, and it's the first couple of weeks of the season. Everything's fine.
Yeah, I've mentioned this a lot, but this is really the downside. Like the off season for the Mets is the greatest thing now. It's just awesome because you're just waiting for them to be involved in every single decision, and the money's going to be there. Steve Cohen's going to be involved. And the Mets are not going to be shut out of any player. We felt with the Wilpons, especially the last few years that they were in control, that they were never going to be in on the big free agents. When Machado and Harper were available, there was no shot that they were even going to talk to them. And now you feel like every top free agent Steve Cohen is going to be in on. I have to say, the beginning of this year, because last year he sort of dipped his toe in the first year, then went a little farther the second year, and now all of a sudden he went all in and blew everybody away with the payroll. But I don't feel like that team represents the money that he has spent. And on top of it, the expectations are making me more annoyed than I would normally be in a season where they start off 6-6.
Yes and yes. That's exactly right. When you spend $360 million, you expect better. And it's essentially the same team. The problem with that number is that you've got $80 million wrapped up into two guys, one we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big, and Alonso hasn't gotten paid yet.
I know.
I mean, think about what we're talking about financially for this team. And then to the off-season point you make, you're dead on right, because anybody is not out of reach anymore, to where the last decade it has felt like, they're not even going to have a meeting with this guy. They're not even going to have a conversation. Let's see, after guys sign, who's around they get good value for.
Yeah.
Those days are over. But then point 3 is also right. Now you're living in the Yankee land and the Dodger land. Your expectations are not to be a good team. It's not to play October, meaningful games in September. It's to win the World Series, and anything short of that is a failure.
Yeah, and I still would rather have it this way. There's no doubt about it. I would rather have the owner who's going to spend and invest in the team and have the expectations high. But I'm just finding myself getting more annoyed early on in the season. And I guess last year, too, you really didn't get annoyed with the Mets until that Braves series. Like, that's the time also when they got swept. They got swept by somebody? It was terrible. Was it the Cubs?
Yes, I think it was at Citi Field.
Right. They got swept by the Cubs. You got annoyed by them then. And then you got annoyed by the Braves series and obviously annoyed in the playoffs. But it took a very long time for the Met fan to, look critically at the Mets in 2022. And early on here, we're already doing it. So I'm trying to train myself to not get that annoyed at things that happened last night. But I'm finding myself, criticizing these players, getting really, really worked up over this offense not delivering consistently. And then finding myself doing the stuff that all the Met fans on Twitter are doing, which is screaming for Vientos, Beatty, and Mauricio because the offense sucks.
What's interesting, though, is if the Mets had gotten out to a start like the Rays won again last night. They're 11-0. They haven't lost.
Yeah.
And they're hitting 1 million home runs, and they're pitching well, and everything's going great right now. You'd probably be very happy, but is it fool's gold? They're not going to keep going on 11-game winning streaks. And when you look at teams like, just last year, look at a team like the Phillies that just hung around.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they got to August and I don't want to say turned it on. That's not fair. Things clicked. It's almost as if the opposite for the Mets. The Mets played really well last year for 5 months, 4 months, whatever, and then kind of died late. It's kind of hang around and then hit your stride at the right time. You got to play your best baseball in September and October. So that's why when I said the positive is they're 6-6, they haven't gotten out to a 3-9 start. There's no panic. They're fine. But you'd like it to be better. I agree.
I guess really what my concern is what you talk about with, we haven't seen Verlander. I don't know what he's going to be as a New York Met. Scherzer, of course, we talked a ton about yesterday, but I'm not necessarily comfortable with him. Kodai Senga's been as advertised to this point, but I'm worried about him as the year goes on. So not every team has concerns, but we're not sitting here talking about 25, 26-year-old pitchers. We're not talking about Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz in their prime with the Atlanta Braves. And Carrasco has been a total mess. So I guess is the reason why. And then I also hate the fact that injuries happen. I understand, but I hate the fact that there are 3 spots in this lineup that are horrendous. And that is third base, that's catcher, and DH. And Francisco Alvarez hopefully can solve one of those or 1.5 of those with the DH at some point this season. But those 3 positions offensively are below average.
Yeah.
Way below average. So that's why, the Mets, if they're going to do something, it's got to be like what the Braves have done. They call up guys and they perform and they're great. And then all of a sudden they sign them to a long-term deal. But that's what they're going to need. They're going to need Beatty at third base to be an offensive stalwart for them this year. They're going to need Francisco Alvarez to figure it out. And they're also going to need, at the trade deadline, a significant bat that works out. Not a New York Yankees Andrew Benintendi who starts off his tenure as a Yankee like 0 for a million, then starts hitting, then gets hurt and isn't available for the postseason.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of stuff for a team that blows everybody away with the payroll.
I think the good thing, though, if you want to look positively, you talk about the three guys with the home runs last night. The Mets do have some talent that you expect to be here this year. But it also goes to Steve Cohen's point that he has talked about since he got here. And that's, yes, we will spend. Yes, we will get free agents. But the ultimate goal is to build up the farm system again so that they can pay their own guys. Like with the Braves. The Braves have done, I think it was you that mentioned when you're staring at the NL East, you're looking at a Braves team that those names you're going to be looking at for the next 8-9 years.
It's going to be like the 80s and 90s.
It very well could be, yeah.
If those guys continue to play well.
Right, but they're all, I think they're all signed to at least 5 year, not all, most of them are all signed to like 5-year deals. So you're looking at the next 5-6 years of what they are. And if they continue to play well, they're always there anywhere, but they're going to continue to always be there. That's what Cohen wants to build. He wants his own guys to come up through the ranks and pay them. Yeah,
and I think that the Yankees really thought that was going to happen with them. But it didn't. Like, think about all the guys who didn't make it. So it was Aaron Judge who did, Gary Sanchez who didn't, Greg Bird who didn't, Aaron Hicks who didn't, Gleyber Torres, who you hope you get a bounce back year from, but he might be gone next year, so he's still up and down and his future's hanging in the balance. So, as we talk about, what your team could be for the next X amount of years, for the Braves, it's worked out. I mean, they win a World Series, they come back, they win a division the next year, and they're favorites to win the division this year. And them and the Mets were the betting favorites, but really I think that most of baseball still favored the Braves in that situation. And you might be dealing with them and those same guys for a decade where that the two top pitchers in your rotation for the Mets are not going to be here in 5 years.
No, this is very much like a Jet thing in terms of winning right now. They got two guys that are at the tail end of their career. You need to win in the next couple of years, this year or next year, because after that, they're gone. And now Ohtani could be here. We know that. And we discussed Steve Cohen making moves. But in terms of the top of your rotation right now, this is it. You've got Verlander and Scherzer here for this short little window. You got to go out and win. And that's where the offense does concern you. And last night, one more thing on last night. They had opportunities. It's early in the season. They're going to go through hot stretches where everything clicks and guys are, Pete Alonso's going to hit that grand slam. He's going to drive a ball into the gap. Like Alonso at one point in the game, I don't remember what inning it was, middle of the game, hits a line drive, right on the screws, right to the center fielder. Yeah, he drifts back a little bit. Those balls start to fall. It's April. It's not that big a deal, but it is a little concerning that their offense is so light right now.
I did love seeing David Weathers out there getting interviewed by Steve Gelbs. Obviously, his son was the starter last night for the Padres. That guy, and I understand every reliever has their ups and downs. There's probably Met fans that have bad memories of David Weathers, but you want to talk about a workhorse when he was with the Mets? I mean, he used to come in and just pitch his ass off every single night.
It also doesn't feel like that long ago.
I know, but when you looked at him in the crowd, you're like, holy hell, he's old.
And his kid's out there.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, which I didn't realize until last night.
Yeah, yep, that's right. What was Joe Beningo called him? Stormy Weathers? Is that what it was? Yeah,
that sounds about right.
But I liked him. I know that there's very.
It's a life of a reliever,
right? Very few relievers are looked at favorably. But I just remember they used to call on his ass all the time. He pitched like 4 days in a row, and just be out there hucking, just like
rubber arm.
Yeah. It was funny seeing him in the crowd. And Steve Gelb's got gray, huh?
It's been kind of,
he's got even worse
coming
this year. Yeah, last year I noticed it a little bit, and then this year it's even more so.
You got to cut your hair shorter.
What do you think? Do you think he dyes it at this point? He just lets
no,
he's in his 30s.
No. You're gonna dye in your hair.
But when did you start going gray, Eddie? In your 30s?
20s.
20s?
Yeah, it's a genetic thing.
Wow. Okay. So maybe he sticks with it. I mean, it doesn't look bad, but
it looks fine.
But
he can't dye it.
Yeah, I know.
Because now we've seen him.
Yeah,
if you're going to diet, you've got to start that when you see the first gray.
And now he's going to, right. But this is what I was talking about, people with the Scout Micro USA thing. Like, you can't lie to people if all of a sudden you get that. Like, Billy Jock alone couldn't lie to us because he had that male pattern baldness thing going on, and all of a sudden he didn't.
Right.
He had to tell us what was going on. Gelbs won't be able to lie about that.
Not
He's
at
going
all.
to just let everybody know.
He looks
No play for Mr. Gray.
Yeah, I wonder if Keith has pitched that to him. Your
He
beard
should.
is weird.
Does Keith still get paid for that?
I don't think so.
By the way, did you hear, maybe you were off the game at this point or not, but did you hear with that ridiculous, whatever you want to call it, the challenge they had on the Cano when he got hit by the pitch? It was like a 6-minute challenge. Keith couldn't understand it. And at one point, you hear this. Like, because it was just taking so long. And at one point he yells out, I forget who the crew chief was. I forget the name. But he calls him out by name. He's like, make a decision.
Yep.
And all I could think of is he's looking at his watch like, I want to go home. Let's go, guys. It was pretty funny.
No, exactly. Because when you got that, we all know it. When you got that long drive ahead of you, that's all that's in your head at that point.
And the challenge made no sense.
Right.
Other than to keep Hader out there and not throw, I guess. But there was no way they were winning it.
So Peter Schwartz is here this morning. He's already laid a foundation of excuses for his first update.
Oh, boy.
He has said to me that the train schedule has changed, and he now gets here later than he normally gets here. And the 7:30 update is going to be a lot better than the 6:30 update because he's not going to be able to accrue as much sound as he would like.
I will tell you, as someone that does the warm-up show every day, the 6:30 update's tough.
Yeah. So he was already, but see, that's the first time I've ever told that to me because I told you Schwartz said that. You're not a man of excuses. The second I walked in here, was laying the foundation.
Fair enough.
You know, you don't come to me when I'm walking in the door, hey, by the way, this 6 o'clock update's going to suck.
No, I don't. But I have told Al on the warm-up show that it suffers.
Yeah, so I gave him a little extra time. I broke a little 5 minutes later, give him a little extra time because I have a feeling that we're going to go to him, and then 2 minutes later, he's going to say, all right, see you next hour.
There you go, guys.
All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan.